G'day everyone. There's no better way to find out what you can expect from study than talking to someone who's done it all before. In this session, we're going to speak with some science alumni about their experiences in the faculty, where they are now, and what it's like to take a science degree out into the real world. My name is Liam, and I studied a Bachelor of Science, majoring in psychology. I'm excited today to be talking to our science panel. We have two science alumni here, and if you don't mind, I'll get you to introduce yourselves, tell me what you all are doing, and what you did before.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Liam, for having me on this panel. So I'm Greer. I'm originally from Wellington, but moved up here in 2021 to study science. I did a Bachelor of Science in Physiology and Psychology, and then we'll hear about my crazy journey throughout.
Sounds good. Lovely to meet you. Lovely to meet you.
Yeah, so hi, my name is Marika. I did an undergraduate conjoint degree in the humanities and the sciences. In the sciences, I was a biology student, and it has also been a very crazy journey to get to where we are now.
Nice. Lovely to meet you both. Thank you. All right, so let's get to our first question. So if you don't mind telling me, what made you want to pursue sciences? Was it a very clear-cut journey, or is it a bit like mine where you started doing different majors and then just go left, right?
It's been a journey. So growing up, I've always, looking back now, I knew I loved science. I always loved mixing things together just to see what happened. Drove my mum insane. And then loved high school chemistry, loved physics, biology. Science was always my favourite subject, was pretty strong in maths. And then, got to university, got to year 13, was I'm going to do a chemistry degree. And looking back now, people laugh at me wanting to do chemistry, but I think my pathway, my majors chose me and just followed that pathway down throughout and switched my major a few times, did chemistry, pharmacology, and then pharmacology, psychology, and ended up with physiology and psychology, and have stuck out physiology.
Nice, just a bit of everything then.
A bit of everything, yeah.
No, that's really cool. I think a lot of people end up changing their major, but that's totally fine, eh? It's
Absolutely,
totally fine. You just get led to where you kind of need to go.
That's the
really
one,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a very similar thing that I knew when I was very young that I wanted to pursue science. I was consuming a whole bunch of medical books, not high level ones. I was watching a whole bunch of nature documentaries about how the world worked, and I really knew that I loved biology from a young age. In high school, I actually had my biology teacher take me to one side and say, you're really passionate about this. I do think you should take this into university. And I went to a whole bunch of career counseling things when I was younger because I had no idea what I wanted to do for a job. And they suggested to me, you should be a genetic counselor. You like genes and you also are very interested in psychology. So go study those two things at university. And so that led me down that initial pathway. I didn't stay on that pathway. I stayed on my majors, but the trajectory has changed time and time again. I've been through several career phases where I was so going to be doing this thing, but science has always really been at the core of what I wanted to do.
Yeah, no, very cool, very good. All right, so where are we now? How does your guys' science degree looks like? Does it impact your work or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely, every day. So just to fill in the blanks a little bit, last year I did my Bachelor of Biomedical Science, which is quite a big research component with a little bit of coursework. So I had a 90-point thesis, and I did that with the Human Cardiovascular Physiology group. Then I've continued on the same research with the same research group, and I'm doing my PhD in physiology, also with Human Cardiovascular Physiology group.
Nice.
Yeah, so I use what I learned in my physiology degree, and the psychology definitely comes in handy working with participants. So every day I'm doing sciences. I'm now teaching as well, the undergraduate courses, which is really cool.
As a GTA?
Yeah, as a TA, yeah.
Nice, no, very cool, very cool. What about yourself?
Yeah, so my degree absolutely informs what I do for work. I'm currently doing a Master's of Bioscience Enterprise, which is another hard pivot from where I thought I was going to be going. The short version of that is how to commercialize science and take it into the business world. Right. And I've found that it's actually a really good idea to have a science background if you want to be involved in business that is based in science, because you understand what you're looking at, you understand how to read the papers, you also understand how to communicate the science to people who may not understand it so well. And that's been a really fun part of my current job with BioPacific Partners, is just learning how to communicate science and do research at a very rapid pace. It's really fun.
That's very cool. I think science teaches you like a way of thinking as well, eh?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And things like how to write, how to review articles, how to think critically. So even if you're not working in the field that you studied in, you're absolutely going to use all the skills that you develop at undergrad. And also thinking about time management and how to manage yourself is crucial for no matter what you do.
I think we've kind of talked about this already in a little bit, just brought it up now, but how else did your science degree or maybe your majors help you with your work experience or anything like that? Anything specific within your degrees?
So we've got like the skills that our degree teaches us, like the theory that we need to know to pursue, for me, a PhD, but also, like I mentioned before, the writing skills, the literature reviewing skills, which writing a lab report at undergrad is quite the task. I spent good 20 hours a week writing lab reports, and I'm so grateful I did, because now writing a thesis, now writing a PhD, or even just review articles, you got to think critically about the papers that you're reading, and it gives you a lens that you don't naturally have of thinking critically. Also, science in the media, things like around COVID and what can you trust, what can't you trust, that's what a science degree will teach you about reliable sources there.
I love being able to read like a news article or just read an article and go like, oh yeah, I know what that's actually trying to say.
Exactly,
You know,
yeah.
I think that's really, really cool. What about yourself?
Yeah, no, I can actually also speak to the idea of learning how to construct a project, how to follow through with a project as well. Not just even inside the lab, but in terms of writing a thesis, in terms of putting together ideas and theories, and then delivering a product at the end of it, delivering a report. It's a really valuable skill to be actually able to go from point A to point B.
Definitely.
And it's hard when you're doing it, it's hard when you're learning it, but you get out the end and you're like, I actually know what I'm doing now, and this feels so great.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. If you could tell yourself one thing from when you started your journey that we've all been on, what would be that one thing that you'd tell your first year self as you entering into uni for the first time?
I would say to my first year self, all you can do is your absolute best, and that's more than enough. You can only give it 100%. You can't give it 110, so don't push for 110. I'd also tell myself your study isn't everything. Like, you're more important than the work that you're doing. You're more important than the studies that you're doing, more important than that assignment and that test, and that grades don't define you. So as long as you put your absolute best effort forward, that's going to be enough.
Definitely.
Yeah, I know it's so stereotypical, but it's okay to change. And even if you're not changing your degrees, it's okay to change your trajectory. It's also okay to branch from subject to subject and just do what is feeling like it's the right thing to do. That is so important, to be able to change to the things that are going to actually improve your life the most, even if they're not what you set out to do.
Exactly.
Lord knows, again, it's probably been 5 times that I've changed what I wanted, but it works out in the end. I can promise that.
Absolutely. I was the same. I changed my major and got told, like, oh, make sure you graduate with a degree. And it's like, you're better off changing, and especially like early on, as soon as you know this isn't the right pathway for me, don't be afraid to change. High school is very different to uni, and when you get put into uni, thrown in the deep end, that's when you really learn what you're passionate about. And if you're sitting in class and you're like, oh, it's not quite right for me, but you do this really cool gen ed course, or you do this really cool additional science course, then if that sparks with you, that sparks your interest.
Yeah.
It's also that thing of just, learning to do stuff that's new as well, taking on new subjects. That is also very fun and very cool. And it is important to be able to reach out and try new things and see if you like them. Don't be afraid to do that.
There's so many more subjects that you can choose from at uni, and you might not necessarily be aware of it. So we didn't do physiology in high school. I didn't even know what physiology was. And through my medical science courses, through doing pharmacology, I realised, actually, it's not really pharmacology I want to do, it's physiology. So was able to make that switch quite easily. Yeah.
I think this all leads really well into our next question. So obviously when you're coming from high school, then going to uni, some of us have moved city, so as yourself, some of us have moved city. Some of us don't quite know how those nuances work, How was your experience with transitioning into university? Any tips or tricks or anything like that?
So I moved from Wellington up to Auckland and went straight into first year halls. And I was the lucky COVID year, so half of our halls experience was during the COVID lockdown, which was a different experience, but it was heaps of fun. So being in a hall with other people who are studying around similar age was a really cool experience and a great way of meeting new people quite quickly. And then actually both of us were part of the Science Scholars course. So that was a great way of meeting some very bright science students very quickly, and also quite broadly in science. So there were people doing chemistry and biology and physics and physiology and biomed and psychology, and I could sit here all day listing all the majors.
Literally, yeah.
And then hearing what they're doing in their subjects, realising how much we have in common was really cool.
I think that's one of the coolest things about science, just the fact that it's so broad.
Yeah.
Like you could literally sit down with someone next to you and they'll be talking about something you have no idea what it's about, but it's just so interesting.
Yeah,
right?
And no two degrees are the same. Even those that have the exact same majors, you're going to be taking different courses. So every single degree is very unique, which is really cool to think about.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that is one of the best things about doing a science degree, is actually being able to sit down with other people who are in science, even if they're not doing your particular brand of science, being able to talk to them. Yeah, coming into university as someone who grew up in Auckland, I didn't have to move. Coming into university was a very strange experience, coming from a all-girls Catholic school all the way into a co-ed space where there was a whole bunch of new people. The classes were all of a sudden really different. There was a whole bunch of new structures. And very similar, I had very little idea as to the nuances between a whole bunch of different degrees and different courses. So being able to sit down and talk to people in your lab, people in your classes, I know it's very scary, but it is important and it does actually work out. And sometimes I can speak to this. I have made a couple of friends who are long-term, really great friends from that. Exactly.
Friends for life.
And just sticking yourself out there. It's not easy, but it's so worth it in the long run.
Yeah, very cool. What about from transitioning from uni to the workforce? So all of us have pursued extra study, postgraduate study, but I assume some of y'all would have done some work experience within your field?
So doing a PhD, it is similar but very different. So like my work schedule is very different to undergrad. I don't have to worry about classes, I don't have to worry about coursework or assignments, but I'm still studying at the University of Auckland. I went from downstairs of Grafton to upstairs of Grafton, so I have
promotion.
Yeah, exactly. I've got my own desk and my own desk set up, which is quite cool. But you're managing your own time, so that's been quite a change. Like you're managing your own time in your undergraduate, but you have your timetable. So you go to class, you have assignments to do, you got tests and all that stuff. But doing teaching assistant has been quite cool, taking what I've learned from undergrad and being able to teach the next generation of young science students. Yeah. So it's just being on the other side of things, on the teaching team.
Interesting,
But we're still in the same spaces, we're still in a very familiar space.
Yeah. Have you done anything else?
I'm in a different position. I've kind of half transitioned out of university. So I'm in my master's thesis year of, like I was saying, the Bioscience Enterprise course. And as part of that, you actually have to take on an internship with a company. So for me, I'm working with Biopacific Partners. They're a consulting company. So I've got half a foot out the door. But it is very much one of those environments where you are always learning new things. I assumed that I would get into the workspace and the workforce and I'd know what I was doing and I would be capable of just walking in there and being like, right, I'm going to apply everything that I've learned. And that's absolutely not the case.
Is it? Yeah.
So you're always learning, you're always picking up new things. And that is something that I'm actually really glad that that's the case. It would be very boring otherwise. But the transition is not as big as a lot of people say it can be. I think it really depends on where you go though and who you're working with, what spaces you're in. For me, I was quite lucky that it was monkey branched from the university. So it very much depends, but it's not a massive daunting leap. So you will be fine. People will be fine.
We all come to university, of course, to hopefully pursue an amazing career, right? An amazing career. But along the way, we can encounter challenges, right? We encounter challenges, but at the same time, we can encounter rewards, right? You know, any rewards, challenges? If challenges, what did you learn from them? How has it made you a better person, do you think?
University is challenging. We're not going to sugarcoat that. I think going into first year, it's overwhelming. You go from high school where you're doing, most people in New Zealand, NCEA. I would describe a first year Bio-Sci 107 as known to be quite a big paper.
There's like 1,000 people in there as well.
Yeah,
right?
you go from being in a classroom of 20 people to sitting in a class of hundreds. So that in itself can be a little bit overwhelming, but quite cool as well. But the content pace is so much faster than high school. You're constantly learning new things. So I would describe one lecture to be about one NCA external exam, and you've got about 28 of those in a semester, times that by 4. So it's a very fast pace, it's overwhelming, but you get through. And looking back now at myself in my first year versus my second year and third year, thinking about the challenges of learning how to keep up with lectures, how to write lab reports, how to read scientific literature, to now doing my PhD and thinking, wow, I did that, I got through. It is a journey, but it is so rewarding. And definitely the people that you meet, they're your tribe. And it might be different people from your first year to your second year, but by your third year, you've got some of your best friends. Even some friends I met in first year are still some of my closest friends, especially those in science scholars. Yeah.
Rewards, challenges,
Yeah,
learnings?
I think actually it's both a reward and a challenge just going through university. It's such an incremental process of learning how to change your mindset, of learning how to do research, of learning how to exist as a student. And then you do get to the end of your degree and you turn around and you go, wow, actually,
Look what I've achieved.
Look at what I've achieved. I know so much more now, and I'm actually a more well-rounded person because I've grown up a little bit more. I've had some more experience in the world, and I feel just so good that I've come through the end of that. And yeah, it's a process, but it is so worth it to get to the other side and be able to stand there with some of your friends and to say, hey, we all did this.
Yeah.
And well done to us.
Yeah, and getting through some of the hardest courses, the ones that you think, oh my God, am I even going to make it through? And then you do, is so rewarding. And then that sets you up better for the next course where you may have more challenges and think, well, if I got through that course, I can get through this course.
No, definitely. Next question, timetabling. Do we have any tips, tricks, any advice, experiences, or anything like that?
Yeah, so putting together a timetable or planning out your 3-year degree, it is quite a challenge. Colour coding, so I figured out what papers I want to take in my first year, how that led on to my second year and third year. Doing a double major was a little bit more restrictive of what papers I could take, but I find colour coding great for what was my psychology papers, what was my physiology papers, what were my gen eds, and all the prereqs for the next course. Working backwards, thinking like, what do I want to take in my second year, what do I want to take in my third year, and what do I need to get those papers? So I realised in my second year, actually I think it's the third year papers, the physiology papers I want to do, not so much the pharmacology papers. So it was because I was looking ahead at the third year papers is what led me to change my major.
Nice. No, I think that brings up a really good point about course outlines, right? So course outlines. So I think it's super helpful that they're just on the university website with all the prerequisites there. I know I used them because I did the exact same thing as you. Great advice. Think backwards. You know, the course outlines. You know, sometimes you don't even know there's a prerequisite, and then suddenly there's a prerequisite.
And you don't want to find out about that prerequisite when you're trying to enroll in the next paper.
As you're trying to enroll, right? I mean, I tried to do some second year biology papers, but I didn't take biosci 108 and 109, and I couldn't do them, and it sucked at the time. But since then, I've looked at those course outlines. I think that's really good advice. What do you think? Any experiences, anything like that?
A few, actually. Yeah, no, because I was doing a conjoint, timetabling was an absolute disaster for me. I had an experience where I miscalculated actually how many points I needed in each of my degrees to actually graduate, and I miscalculated to have too many points. So I did one extra course that I didn't actually need. And as much as I don't regret taking that course, I definitely wish that I had planned my time better, because that ended up with me doing a 6-paper semester that I really didn't have to. So take my advice and use stuff like the student hubs. The student hubs are genuinely really great. The lines can be a bit long, but they are genuinely there to help. And they are actually underutilized a lot of the time.
Yeah, I agree.
Go at an off-peak time. And they are so willing to help you actually get your degree in order, and they will also help you work backwards, I have found.
They will,
they'll take you through the entire process. So can't recommend them enough.
Yeah. And if you're not sure, ask. So
always.
There's amazing resources at the university, and there's heaps out there, but you have, as a student, you have to be the one to reach out and ask for that help. So give them a call, go in person. You may even meet your best friend in the line at the library, right?
Exactly. All right, last question now. So the real world, right? We do sciences hopefully to improve the world, you know. How do you think your degree or what you've learned or your future career, how is that going to change the world? What do you hope to bring to the world?
Yeah, so my work doing human physiology definitely has real world implications. But going back to undergraduate lectures, sitting in a lecture theatre, being like, why do I need to learn this? And now looking back 3-4 years later and being like, I'm glad I learned that, because I use that theory all the time now. It's hard to see it in the moment when you're sitting in a lecture theatre, but now that stems a basis for what I do now. We need the theory to understand what I'm doing now. So now I'm working with human participants. They all have, well, I've got healthy controls, and I've got patients with this condition called postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. You've come across long COVID before, right?
Yes.
So there's quite a lot of overlap between long COVID and POTS. So this community group has been quite neglected historically, and often they're not heard. So being able to sit down in the lab with participants during screening and familiarisation sessions and being able to hear their story and their experience, and even just them being heard, has made a difference in their life individually. But then being able to figure out mechanisms that could lead to more treatment options, knowing that publications will make a difference to the field of POTS physiology research as a whole, is so cool to be part of.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess my side of it is on the opposite end of that, where I'm looking at the published papers and I'm helping decide what actually gets taken into the commercial world. And my science training that also really helps in terms of making those really hard decisions some days. But it's those going to those lectures, like you said, but also listening to those little snippets that your lecturers will sometimes give you. Sometimes it's not even just the content, it's the life lessons that people can give you throughout your degree from your lecturers, your peers, everybody that you come in contact with. And those sometimes ring through my head about how to conduct yourself as a science person, as someone who's interacting with the world in a much more tangible way than I think I ever have before. But I am very excited to get to try and make an impact on the world by picking the things and pushing for projects that will make
a difference.
A big difference.
Yeah. Well, hey guys, I think that's a good way to wrap it up. I want to thank you guys so much for your time, your energy, your advice, and everything like that.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank
don't
you.
Worry. I think incoming students are going to really appreciate the advice and know that the next 3-ish years of their lives isn't going to be as hard as they think it will be, because you guys have provided such amazing advice. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
I'd also like to thank you for watching. Thank you so much for your time. We do hope to see you again. Ka kite.